officially hit halfway through the year, which A, is absolutely terrifying, but also B, it means that I can start looking at my eyeshadow palette usage. So today I'm going to go through all of my most used eyeshadow palettes so far in 2024. It's the halfway mark. I always like to use the halfway mark as a little bit of a keeping track of, you know? I don't want all of my eyeshadow palettes to be neglected, so definitely stay tuned for tomorrow's video, which will be my least used palettes of 2024. But some of these palettes were not a shock, but some of them actually were quite a shock. And I'm gonna say this before I even get into this video. We all know that my Modern Renaissance is my most used palette of the year. This is what it looks like. It's been my Pan That palette. I'm still working very, very hard on it. So I've decided not to include this in this video. I just think it would be so disappointing to go through, like, keep you all in suspense. And then obviously this is number one. So I didn't want to have you hanging on for that. We all know it goes without saying this is my most used, so I'm not going to be including this one in this video. But I do have 5 of my most used eyeshadow palettes with me today. But just before I do go in and show you guys the palettes, definitely like and subscribe because I upload every single day here on YouTube, and I do bright, fun, colourful makeup. Today I've gone a little bit more green. I think this goes really well with my colouring. I don't know. I'm kind of loving this green today. I also do a lot of get ready with me's. I do some kind of shop my stash stuff. I do a lot of project pans. So if that sounds like a good time to you, then definitely stick around. But without further ado, let's jump in to these palettes. So I don't necessarily count it as a use if I've used one shade in an eye look. These are complete looks that I have done with these palettes. That's what I count as a full use, just because otherwise I will be tallying for days. So let's start with number 5, which is actually a little bit of a shock to me, but that is the Subculture palette. So I've used this 7 times in the past 6 months, which is pretty good. I think that's a really good amount, and especially when I say full looks as well. So this is what the palette looks like inside, and I've always loved this palette. I've always said justice for Subculture because she is my baby. I love her so much. The shade Axis was in a Pan Those Eyeshadows project this year, so obviously I had a lot of use on that. But while I was playing around with Axis, I was also playing around with like some of these yellows are beautiful. Electric is so close to having pan on it, so hopefully I can hit that soon. I was combining it with Destiny, with All Star. I was just having a grand old time with this palette. I really do love this color story. It kind of goes with what I'm wearing today. I could probably do this exact look with this palette, which is kind of interesting. I've only just thought of that. But I do love the color story. I know some people really don't like it, but I'm such a fan. I wish Anastasia would come out with something this risky again. Maybe like a blue palette. You guys know I love my blues. So yeah, I really love this palette. I think the quality is amazing. I did get the newer formula, so not the original formula. I know that was the one that everyone had issues with, but this is my little baby. Like, I love a blue, green, yellow blend. So straight up my street. I love it. I am kind of nervous about using this on my channel in like get ready with me's and things like that because A, it is discontinued, and B, there's a lot of feelings for this palette, let me say that. And I don't know, I just kind of use it in my free time normally. I was gonna have this as a Pan That palette, but then I did think it's very colourful. It's not very everyday. There were only like a few everyday shades that I could kind of get away with. So I decided not to use it, and also it is discontinued. I can't buy it anymore. I really like this. This shade Mercury is so beautiful. You guys know I love my cool tone taupes, so I'm really happy with this. Hopefully I can get more use out of this year. But now let's move on to the 4th most used palette in my collection. So this isn't necessarily a shock, and I was umming and ahhing whether I even wanted to include this in this video because, like I said before, my Pan That palette is not included in this video just because obviously it is used. But this is my Bella Pierre All Stars palette, and this technically is a pan matte palette. This is my pan matte palette in order. So you can see we've got most of the top row done apart from this pinky mauvey shade here. I did decide to just skip this because it's very similar to Bon Fresco, which I'm currently trying to finish. So I didn't want to have two shades competing for my attention. So I did just decide to skip over that. I might go back to it later on. And we are all the way to this pink shade here. So this is more of an obvious palette, like I use it a lot. It is a kind of pan matte palette, and I have used this 9 times in 9 complete looks. Again, I've hit pan in a lot of these shades, so that is not 9 times in total, but I like to count complete looks as a use. I do like this, I really do. This was a palette that I was nervous about rolling in. I was nervous about using it because I didn't really know how I felt about it. I'm actually very happy now that I've got through this like neutral barren wasteland, you know? It's been a real hard time for me to pan all these neutrals. You guys may know I am a colour girly. I absolutely love my colourful eyeshadow, so getting through that has been very nice. Now I'm working on these 2 shades and I am definitely using them with Bon Fresco as well. They've made beautiful color combos. I'm so excited about that. I really think we're going to be able to get really good progress on these 2. Hopefully, anyway, fingers crossed. But I really like this quality. I got this in TK Maxx a few years ago and I think the retail price is like £50. But if you can find it in TK Maxx, definitely pick it up. The duochromes are beautiful. I've loved playing around with these blues. You can see this orange has the biggest dip in it ever. So I'm very, very close to hitting pan in that. I've used this taupe quite a lot. Taupes are my absolute dream. I love wearing taupes so much. So I've dipped around in this. I played around with this, and obviously because I'm panning each shade, sometimes it is easier, especially if I'm traveling, just to take this palette with me because I can work on my shade that I'm working on. I also have a brow shade. I've used this multiple times as a brow shade when I'm traveling. I also have a lid setting shade, an inner corner shade. Like, this is a great travel palette, and I think that's where a lot of these uses have come from because it's so easy to just whack this in my makeup bag. It is a little bit big, but it does fit. Whack it in my makeup bag and I kind of have everything here instead of bringing my Modern Renaissance and then also a brow shade and also an inner corner shade and also a lid setting shade. You know, it gets a lot. So just bringing this whole palette has definitely been great for travel, and I think, yeah, now I think about it, that is definitely where these uses have come from. Alrighty then, number 3, and again, this is going to be one, no one is surprised at this, I don't think. This is my Book of Magic palette. You guys know, well, it was upside down, so you guys know I love this palette, and I mean, just look at all the pans in this. This has been in multiple projects. It's been in a few Pan Those eyeshadows. It's been a No Pan Left Behind, I'm pretty sure, but a lot of them are actually organic pans, which is something that I barely ever hit. I never hit organic pans, but there's been a lot in this palette. This palette is my baby. It is my color story. I love this color story. The blues, the teals, the neutrals, the purples, right up my street. And I'm really, really proud to have this many pans in this palette. As I said before, I'm a blue girl, so of course this is straight up my street. And I am getting to the point now where I'm getting a little bit nervous using it because, again, this is a discontinued palette, so it's kind of like, do I want to keep using it? Because, like, I'm scraping the barrel a little bit. Well, not really. I do have a lot of product left, but in my brain, it's like, oh, we're getting close to finishing it. This was number 2 in my choice of pan that palette this year, and I decided not to go for it just because it is discontinued. I don't know if I am, like, able to finish it yet, you know? I don't know if in my brain I'm able to do that yet. But right now, I'm really happy working on a few shades. The shade Elixir is in my Pan Those eyeshadows right now, so I'm working away on that. I've got a little bit of a dip in there, so hopefully there'll be another pan very, very soon. I know a lot of people get annoyed when I use this so much because you can't buy it, but sometimes I can't help myself. I just love this palette so much. It is 100% one of my favorites, and a part of me has been thinking about buying the Beauty Bay Midnight palette. I think then I would be able to use this a lot more because the Midnight palette is very, very similar to this one. So maybe that could be like my replacement, but then again, it doesn't have these teals and it doesn't have these neutrals, I don't think. So I mean, I do have plenty of teals and plenty of neutrals in other palettes, but I mean, just visually, this color story is stunning, and I'm so excited to reach for this all the time. I've used this for 10 looks in the past 6 months, so that's a really healthy amount of looks. I use this a lot. I'm not sure if No Pan Left Behind was this year or last year. I'm pretty sure it was last year, so that's not counted in this. I think I just reach for it naturally. I think I just keep reaching for it. And it's crazy because it's such an old palette. It's not like it's a new exciting thing in my collection. This has been in my collection for years, but I just can't stop using it. It's one of them palettes. I do really, really love it. When Beauty Bay discontinued this, I was absolutely gutted because this is just me and a color story. I love it so much. The mattes especially. I can kind of take or leave the shimmers a lot of the time, but the mattes, I love them. You can see most of the pans are in the mattes. There is going to be a day where I either have to finish this or declutter this, and I'm dreading that day. I'm putting that day off because this is definitely one of my favorite palettes. In our second spot is actually something that it's blue, but I don't like. And just from that, a lot of you may know, my Natasha Denona Mini Trio Chrome. So this has been my Project Level Up palette, and I am working on these two shades right now. They both have massive dips in them, so hopefully it will be rolled out quite soon. But this palette, I don't like it. I don't like it. The color story is great, it's just the quality, and I've been on a Natasha Denona rant a lot recently, but I just don't like Natasha Denona's quality. It's just not for me, and that's okay. That's fine. I find that the mattes are just a bit too dry, and it makes it a little bit hard to blend. The shimmers, well, this shimmer is okay, it's fine. That's the reason that I'm working on this shade. I do like this shade as well. I use this one more for wings, but this duochrome, it's not very good. I don't think so anyway. It just looks a bit dull. Of course, it doesn't look dull there, of course. It's making me look like a liar. I don't know, it's just one of them. I'm not fussed about it. The mattes are most important to me because I have so many indie duochrome single shades that I can just kind of add a duochrome. I can add a single shadow, but it's the mattes that are just a little bit I'd rather have good mattes and disappointing shimmers, but all of this is just a bit tricky. I think that's the word for it. It's just a bit tricky. I've tried to blend these two shades out on their own like multiple times, just these two. They don't want to work together. I'm blending for an eternity. It's ridiculous. So I don't know, it's just one of them. I use it a lot because I've been working on it in a project, but I think if this was not in a project, I would not be using this too much. I'm hoping these two can be done very, very soon. I'm just using this for wings and I'm using this for inner corners. Not very technical at all, but I have done some pretty cool looks with this, and I go through a few of the looks that I have done with this in my latest Level Up update. I will link that up in the cards if you want to see some blue looks. I go through all the looks that I've done, so it's been nice because I do love blue, but I definitely wouldn't choose to reach for this so much, I think, if it wasn't in a Project Level Up. So yeah, 10 looks done with this, which is kind of crazy, but also I'm not surprised. So my most used palette, apart from my Pan That palette, of the first 6 months of the year. This was crazy to me. I was so shocked by this. So I've used this palette 11 looks, and it's the Soft Glam palette. What? So I've said before, I'm a colourful girl. I love my colourful shades. This is my Soft Glam palette. I know why. I know why. But I was very shocked when I first saw this. So, very warm, very neutral, which, despite my eye look today, is definitely not my kind of thing. However, let me get my Modern Renaissance because she has a part to play in this. So this is my Modern Renaissance, and you can see these shades, that it's kind of like an incomplete color story. I can use these shades together sometimes, and sometimes they do make really nice looks together. However, these 4 shades in conjunction with this palette make more sense. So I think a lot of the time I do go in with like Red Ochre or Realgar and then kind of use this to do the rest of the look. So when I say full looks, as long as this is like the majority of the look, then I will count this as the palette for the day. So yeah, I've been kind of mixing the two subconsciously, I think, and just kind of going from there. This shade Glistening here was in a Pan Those Eyeshadows update series, project, whatever you want to say. And I did hit pan on that. So I think that kind of fueled me to reach for these palettes in conjunction with each other. This could be a really, really nice companion palette for this. I have started doing companion palettes in my Pan That Palette updates. So every month I pull in a palette that would work really, really well with the remaining shades in this palette. Right now it's the Colourpop Making Mauves, but I feel like this could also go really, really well as well. It's very warm tone neutral, and I think I need some kind of blending shades for these because 3 out of the 4 of them are very dark, and it gets a little repetitive using these just with itself. So I was very shocked when this was my number 1. I've used this in 11 full or nearly full looks, but it kind of makes sense. Now I sit and think about it, yeah, it makes sense. My favorite shade is Dusty Rose, which of course is the more cool tone shade. Trust me to pick the only cool shade in a whole warm tone palette. But I was not expecting this. I was expecting something super colourful, super in your face, super bright and vibrant. I wouldn't use that to describe the soft glam. And my palette is looking disgusting. Not as disgusting as the outside of the Modern Renaissance. Like, I don't know what's happened here. She's been through some kind of war because look at that. So she's definitely better looking, but still, she still looks a bit banged up. So yeah, here we go. Were you shocked at my number 1? Because I definitely was. I was not expecting that at all. There were, of course, some palettes that I was not shocked about. The Book of Magic being the main one. Who'd have thought? Who'd have thought Book of Magic could be in this video? Let me know down below what your most used palette of the first 6 months of the year has been. Is it a neutral? Is it a colourful? Let me know. Do you love it? Or is it just like a bit of a bind, like a Pan That palette? Let me know all your thoughts down below. I love reading your comments. And with that being said, this is where I'm gonna love you and leave you today, guys. I hope you had an incredible day. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you tomorrow for a brand new video. Bye bye!